Have you ever talked yourself into doing something? Now, let me clarify a little bit. Have you ever talked yourself not into doing something brave, not into doing something positive, but have you ever talked yourself into doing something where the reason you had to talk yourself into doing it is because initially you knew it was dumb? You knew it wasn't a good idea? You knew it wasn't either like the right thing to do or a smart thing to do? I think all of us in the room have done that. Let me give you a quick little example of a little glimpse into little Jeff. I was in high school, and my dad had bought this brand new wood furniture for the living room. Not sure what in my mind made me think this, but I looked at that furniture. They were gone. My parents were gone. I was alone in the house. High school, 15 years old. And I looked at that furniture, and I said, "Self, I bet you can jump over that chair." Now, initially, I knew this was a bad idea. I knew this wasn't something that I should do. It's my parents' brand new furniture. There's not really any reason to jump over the chair. But why do you jump over the chair? Because it's there. So I convinced myself that this was a good thing, that this was the right thing to do, that this was something, darn it, that I needed to do. So I stepped back into the kitchen. The chair was in the living room. And I got myself a running start. And I go running, and I leap into the air. Okay, think of the highest jump you can imagine. I'm surprised I didn't hit my head on the ceiling. I jumped so high. And I went over that chair looking like a track star going over a hurdle. I'm just like, I'm sure it went into slow motion. And I cleared that chair by a foot. And I'm like, yeah. So now, being the arrogant jerk that I was, I waited for my parents to get home. My dad is sitting on the couch right in front of his new chair. And I'm like, "Hey, Dad, want to see me jump over that chair?" Now, I had convinced myself this was the best idea ever. And my dad's like, "Don't jump over the chair. It's a brand new chair. You're going to land on it." No. I've already done it. Like, that's the reason to do it again. But it was to me. I'm like, "Watch this." And my dad's like, "Don't, Jeff, don't. Don't. It's not worth the risk. It's a brand new chair." I disappeared into the living room. The next thing he sees is his 15-year-old son. And I leaped into the air. This stupid left foot, I think it's a little longer than my right one, and I led with my right foot, and my back foot caught that chair. It didn't just tip the chair over. Somehow that chair, carried with me and remained under me as I traveled through the air. And it was definitely one of those things like, oh no. I landed on that chair. It broke into 17 pieces. I mean, I crushed it. Every leg, every arm, the back of the chair, the seat of the chair, it all came apart. Just like, and my dad just sat there on the couch. He's just like, guess whose fault it was? The makers of the chair. Well, they would have made the chair stronger, right? So we've all done this where we know something isn't true, isn't a good idea, isn't something that we should pursue, and yet we can talk ourselves into just about anything, right? Now, believe me, I have more stories where that came from. But for now, I want you to just consider something in your life where you have talked yourself into believing that something was a good idea. Because if we're not careful, we can take what we want to be true and make it true. We can look at something and go, you know what? I want that. And we can convince ourselves, even though as we initially look at it, we go, you know what? That doesn't seem like the best idea, or that doesn't seem true, or that doesn't seem like it's going to be good for me. But you know what? Give me enough time, and I'll convince myself of it. And there's this letter that a guy named Paul wrote to Christians in Rome. And this is what he said in this letter. He goes, yeah, they knew God. And he's talking about people who knew God, who God had revealed himself to them. He says, they knew God, but they wouldn't worship him as God or even give him thanks. And they began to think up foolish ideas of what God was like. Because honestly, we want God to be like we want him to be, right? When we need Grandpa God, we want Grandpa God. When we want generous God, we think he's generous God. And it can be so easy to make God who we want him to be. So they began to think up foolish ideas of what God was like. And as a result, their minds were dark and confused. In a simplistic way, just like my mind became dark and confused about jumping over this chair. It's like there was no need to jump over the chair. Probably wasn't going to end well. It was risky. It was something valuable that I could destroy. Their minds became dark and confused. Claiming to be wise, they instead became utter fools. See, when we put enough thought into it, over time, trying to convince ourselves that something that's dumb to do is really a good idea, well, we start to claim that, no, I know what's best. And anybody who doesn't agree with me, well, they're the ones who are wrong. They're the ones that are fools. Claiming to be wise, they instead became utter fools, like when I landed on that chair, right? And instead of worshiping the glorious, ever-living God, they worshiped idols made to look like mere people, birds, and animals and reptiles. So God abandoned them to do whatever shameful things their hearts desired. See, people decided this is what we want God to be. This is who we believe God is. And so they start making idols. And we talked a few weeks ago about, when God was so with the children of Israel as they were led out of Egypt. And then it wasn't long before they start going, okay, well, we need God to be like this. So Aaron, make us a golden cow. And their minds became dark and confused. Where with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the entire nation, King Nebuchadnezzar says, hey, bow to the idol. And everybody went, oh, well, okay. The children of Israel were part of Babylon at that point. They knew God. Their ancestors had been freed from Egypt. And yet when King Nebuchadnezzar said, hey, bow to the idol, well, we probably shouldn't. Okay. And when Jesus, being Jesus, is out in the wilderness, and Satan comes at him and tries to darken his mind, tries to get him to take things into a different perspective, tries to get Jesus, think about this, tries to get Jesus to convince himself of something that's not true. Satan tries to get Jesus to look at things in a way that would fulfill this idol of comfort in him. And here, Paul's addressing this and going, instead of worshiping the glorious, ever-living God, they worshiped idols. They became dark and confused, and so God gave them over to their heart's desire. Now, we could think that this is a thing, it's like, oh man, I wish God would just let me do what I want to do. But remember, because of what their focus is, their minds are darkened and they're confused. And so what they think is going to give them life, well, let's see. As a result, they did vile and degrading things with each other's bodies. They traded the truth about God for a lie. Hang on to that statement. They traded the truth about God for a lie. So they worshiped and served the things that God created instead of the Creator himself, who is worthy of eternal praise. So they worshiped the created rather than the Creator. Get this in your head, where if somebody were to hand you a beautiful painting that they had painted, and you take it and you're like, yeah, you know what? This painting's my best friend now. And you walk around and all of your focus is on that painting. All of your attention and your affection and your appreciation is given to that painting. Now, the person who painted it, the creator of the painting, they can hang out too. They can, but oh man, this painting, this is my BFF painting, right? And we would look at that and we're like, wait a minute, no. The relationship is with the person who created the painting. Not the painting. The painting itself is not worthy of praise. The one who created it is absolutely worthy of praise, and that's where the relationship is. And so here, what Paul is pointing out is that they traded the truth of God for a lie. And rather than worshiping the Creator, rather than worshiping the God who is alive and loved them and was at work in their life, rather than giving him praise, rather than living for him, they start living for these idols, these created things. Because to worship the created rather than the Creator, that is making an idol. So as we've been talking about idolized, as we've been talking about things and that we lift up as idols, that we put as idols in our lives, this is how this works. When we start worshiping the created rather than the Creator, when we start to push aside who God is and what God calls us to, because no, the created, us, has a better idea. We should be able to decide what is important. We should be able to decide what's going to give us life, what's not going to give us life, what should be allowed and what shouldn't be allowed. And so, God, you better either come alongside our thinking and let us do and think what we want to do and think, or, you know what, we're going to just do our own thing. And this is not a new idea. We see this all the way back in Genesis in the Bible, the first book of the Bible. We see this where Adam and Eve, remember Adam and Eve, right? They exchanged the truth of God for a lie when they believed Satan, when he said, hey, you're not going to die. You should be able to just do what you want. Look, you're going to be enlightened. But then Adam and Eve had kids. And two of their kids were Cain and Abel. And as these guys grew up, they knew God. God was with Adam and Eve, and they had relationship. And so Cain and Abel knew God. And God said, hey, you are to bring an offering that is a meat sacrifice. It's a blood offering. Now, for Abel had grown up and he raised cattle. That was his job. Cain was a farmer. And so he grew food and wheat and things like that. And so when God said, hey, you're to bring a meat sacrifice, you're to bring a blood offering. Well, Abel did that. He brought the very best of what he had. Cain, to his credit, brought the very best that he had. What did he have? Veggies, things that he had grown. And he came to God and he said, here, God, here's my offering to you. And God said, Now, whole other series that we could do on, well, why was it such a big deal? Why didn't God, was God just being mean and rejecting Cain's offering? But what we need to focus on is Cain decided, you know what? God should be happy with what I want to give him. God should be happy with how I want to live my life. You tracking with me? Okay, in our lives today, in all kinds of ways, we go to God and we go, God, you should be happy with what I want to do. You should be happy with the decision that I want to make. You should be fine with what I'm willing to do for you, what I'm willing to, the things that I'm willing to say, hey, you called me to this, and so I'll listen to this, but I'm not going to listen to this. And what Cain did was he went to God and he said, no, this is what you get. You should be happy with, and he determined what God should be happy with, what God should accept. And when God said, no, that's not what I've called you to, and Cain disagreed, and Cain argued with God, and Cain was angry, and instead said, you know what? No, if you're not going to be okay with it, then I'm taking matters into my own hands, and I'm going to do the things that I want to do. And my brother, I'm sick of him. I'm sick of him. Oh, well, God accepted Abel, and so Cain killed him. He murdered his brother because Cain wanted to do what Cain wanted to do, and he prioritized himself. He made himself an idol saying, look, this is what I want to do. In your life, think about it in your life. What are the things you're like, but I want to do this with my girlfriend. I want to talk about people in this way. I want to have this attitude with my parents. I want to steal this. I want to cheat on this. And God, you should be fine with it. And we begin to step out the way that Cain did. And when Cain stepped out against God, it was death. Something I want you to consider, something that I've got to consider in my heart, is when you find yourself arguing with God, is it because you're making an idol? Is it because you're prioritizing something that you want? You're prioritizing you and your desire and what you think you should be allowed to do. What you think, oh God, it's silly that that's a rule. It's silly that I can't do what I want with this person, or that I can't be attracted to this, or that I can't be part of this activity. When you find yourself arguing with God, is it because you are making an idol? You're making an idol of yourself, where you're demanding that your thoughts and your ideas be the most important thing. Are you with me? Okay, we can all think of ways that we do this, right? And they're not all life-changing, earth-shattering ways, but they are all ways that we come against God. God calls it sin. And it separates us from God. And the question is, in these areas where, well, I have a different idea than God, are you willing to, as Jesus said, deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me? See, all of these impulses that we have, impulses to lie, impulses sexually, impulses to cheat or steal, these are all opportunities that God said from the very beginning, said every day you're going to have life and death, blessings and curses, all that you would choose life. Every day, these are opportunities for you to either deny yourself or not. And when we don't deny ourselves, when we are unwilling to go, you know what, no, God's called me away from that. God's called me not to be part of that. Every time that we forget that and we make ourselves an idol. We make an idol of ourselves. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie. They knew the truth, but they exchanged the truth of God for a lie, meaning they made themselves the priority. They made themselves the idol. In what ways, just be thinking about this, in what ways do you talk yourself into believing something that's not what God's called you to? It's not who God calls you to be, but you twist it and you be like, oh, well, it's not that bad. Oh, well, as long as nobody gets hurt. Well, it's my life. I can't control these ways that we exchange the truth of God, of who God is and what God's called us to, and we exchange it for a lie. And that makes us the priority. That makes us an idol. And in our culture today, you guys, this is everywhere. This is everywhere. You and I are being bombarded with this call to make yourself an idol. Make you the most important. Ignore everything else. You do you. You go with what makes you feel good. You go with what you think is the right thing to do. And we are bombarded with this every day. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to be a little bit interactive here. I'm going to put some memes up on the screen. Okay? Now, here's what I want you to do. And I want you to take this seriously because these are not funny memes. I'm just going to tell you right now, they're not funny. These memes are going to declare some things, and I want you to talk you're going to get like 20 seconds. I want you to talk with the people like right directly next to you and see if you can come up with, is there a problem with this? Is there a problem with this thinking? This statement that's going to be up on the screen, is it something that we should go, yeah? Because I'm telling you, the stuff I'm about to put up sounds great. I'm giving you a clue. It's going to sound great. None of it's going to look and be like, that's totally off the wall. That's wacko. This stuff sounds great. And you're going to look at it and you're going to be like, oh, Amen. Right? Guarantee it. Okay? You ready? Here we go. Some of these make me really sick. Okay, here we go. You ready? Baby girl, you are the sun. Stop giving them warmth if they can't support your shine. Baby girl, you are the sun. Okay, with the people around you right now, is there a problem with this? Is there an issue? Go ahead. Come on. Baby girl, you... And not like, well, I'm a boy. Not that. It's... Okay. You good? Okay, Gavin, is there a problem? What's the problem? A girl isn't a son. That's what I said, not that. Is there a problem with this statement? Isn't this an encouraging statement? Isn't this great? Emma. Okay, you can't stop being nice, okay? Okay. Bailey? Okay. If you didn't hear her, she said, it's saying that you're the center of it all and you're not supposed to be the center of it all. Anybody else? Tate.
It's basically saying that a person's above it all and no one can withhold or shine. She's basically saying that she's the idol.
Okay. I have some news for you. You are not the sun. You are not the center of the universe that everything revolves around. Furthermore, you cannot provide the light and the heat that everybody needs to fulfill their life. And yet this is being screamed at you. You are the light. Oh, you are. Here's what the Bible says. Here's what Jesus said. I am the light of the world. Jesus said, I'm the light of the world. All this, you're the sun, you're not the sun, right? Jesus is the light of the world. Okay, you ready for the next one? Here we go. Here we go. Oh no, oh no. Ah, come on. You, of all the people you will know in a lifetime, you are the only one you will never leave or lose. To the question of your life, you are the only answer. To the problem of your life, you are the only solution. Talk about it. Come on. What's wrong with it? Is there a problem? Look, I mean, you're always there for you. Come on. Okay, help me out. Is there a problem? Is there a problem? Roberto.
Basically, you've got to replace every you with God if it's correct.
Okay. All right. You're the only one. Yeah.
It kind of just says like it's almost like you can't learn anything from other people even if they do.
Okay. You can't learn from you are everything that you need. And Jeremiah. Oh, he raised your hand. Okay. Gaith. It's saying nothing else matters but you, Riley. If I am the solution to all my problems, right. Okay, here's what Jesus says. I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. This is being screamed at us all the time, saying you can be enough for you. You are all you'll need. And yet it's packaged so nicely. And something I want to, kind of as a disclaimer, all these ones that I'm going to show you, you can look at these and you can justify them and go, well, it's not really what it means. Okay. But nobody's explaining this when it's said to you. Nobody's going, now look, put this in context. It's not saying that you don't need anybody. It's not saying... This is what this is saying. And we interpret this. Okay, moving on. You ready? Here we go. Note to self, you got to do this for you. This is for you. This isn't about anybody. Live for you. Honor you. Never lose sight of that. Go ahead. What's the problem? Go ahead. Is there a problem? Okay. Is there a problem? Corbin.
It's all self-centered.
It's all very self-centered. Okay. What else? Micah.
Whoever's creating these past two memes are narcissists.
Narcissism is certainly going to be part of it, but I don't think it's just a disorder of narcissism. Narcissism is a thing that's much deeper than just but it's definitely self-focused. It's definitely saying me, and I, yeah.
I think it's just mostly like you don't need anyone else. It's just you, and you are the solution to everything. Basically, the combination of all three memes.
Okay, so do this for you. Think of you, consider you, and then it tops it off at the end. Never lose sight of that. It seems to be really in conflict with love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. How in the world are you going to do that if this is where your heart's at? And you can look at this and be like, oh, no, it's just meant to be a positive thing. Come on, you can do it. You can, and encouragement. Okay, all right. We can dismiss it that way. But this is being screamed at us all the time. Make this about you. Make you the priority. You do what you've got to do. All right, next one. Here we go. Oh, this one's a doozy. Here we go. We betray our true selves when we do not follow the heart's desire. For what the heart is attracted to is your destiny. But it's so pretty. It's on pink. Go ahead, talk about it. Is there a problem? Okay. We betray our true selves when we do not follow the heart's desire. Why? Because what the heart is attracted to is your destiny. Is there a problem? Hannah. Your heart will always deceive you? Well, gosh, I don't know. I feel like I fell in love with my wife. Isn't that, why can't I follow my heart for that? Okay, no, I get it. No, that's right. Okay, follow your plan for your life. What you think, Carter? A lot of the stuff your heart's attracted to is ugly, not good for you. I think that's what you mean by ugly. Josh.
It's basically, if you're into video games, your heart basically goes to video games, reading the Bible.
Okay. There, Lucas.
So Bob says that our heart is deceitful, so how is it betraying ourselves if we're following our heart when the Bible says we're not supposed to?
Okay. But this sounds so good, right? Because if you believe this, if you hear this, hey, follow your heart. Isn't that what we want to do? Let's be honest. Don't we want to follow our heart? Don't we want to go with our impulse? And yet, let me tell you, there have been times in my life, if I did this, I'd be in prison. I'm just saying, right? I would definitely not have a driver's license. I mean, all kinds of, there's a couple things that we should consider here. I feel like this meme is a good response to this one. Don't believe in yourself. Yourself is what got you into this mess. Right? Proverbs 3. Okay? Proverbs 3:5 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean on your own understanding. See, this other one says, no. Your understanding, the way that you understand it, what you desire, what you want, that's accurate. That's good. Go with that. God would say, don't depend on your own understanding. Don't look at things and go, look, the way that I perceive them, what I think is good, well, that's truth. This is where we this is where we exchange truth for a lie. Jeremiah 17:9, Lucas mentioned it earlier. The heart, unguarded and unguided by the Holy Spirit, is deceitful above all things. The heart is going to try and get you to go with what you want. The heart is going to be like, hey, you have an impulse? Chase that impulse. Do what you want to do. Like who you want to like. Go with whoever you want to go with. Be whoever you identify yourself to be. Just go with that because that's going to be truth. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't depend on your own understanding. It is my daily task to remember to love myself as greatly as I love others. Surely this can't be a problem. It's my daily task to love myself as much as I love others. Go. Talk about it. Is this true? Okay. All right. Let me know. What are your thoughts on this one? I mean, it's talking about loving others. That's good. Loving yourself. That's good. Where we're at? Jonah. Okay, so he's saying flip it. Jordan. The what? Okay, pride. Okay. Mackenzie.
I think there's a healthy balance between loving yourself and loving others, but the priority and beyond that should be your love for God, because when you love God, you're automatically going to respond by loving yourself and loving others.
Okay. Carter.
What I see from this is that it's primarily focused on the love of yourself, when our primary focus should be on loving others before ourselves.
Okay. See, this one is like when Jesus was asked what's the greatest commandment. He said, love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Okay, and then love your neighbor as yourself. So this would be more like the second commandment right after love yourself with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Make you. Now, again, this isn't saying you should hate yourself. You don't love yourself. There's nothing lovable about you. What we're looking at is this being screamed at you. You. Focus on you. You make sure that you are everything that you need to be. Make sure that you, because you can blossom yourself. You can become this on your own. And this next one is similar. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You must fill your cup first. Now, yeah. And there's actually a lot of wisdom in this. Last week, I wasn't here because I went up into the mountains to be alone, to be by myself, just by myself, making myself available to who? Hopefully God. See, what these kinds of statements do not scream at you in our culture is, hey, you cannot pour from an empty cup. Guess what? That's true. That's absolutely true. No problem with that at all. You must fill your cup first. Okay? If that were to say your cup must be filled first, great. What does this say? You must fill your cup first. You must fill your cup. You are responsible for filling your cup. Now, again, we can look and be like, well, it wasn't saying it, Jeff. It just means that you can't give what you don't have. Okay. Our culture does not make that distinction. Our culture does not counsel us in that way. Our culture is not directing us to God going, hey, look, you cannot fill your own cup. You guys, you cannot fill your own cup. And so as we look at this, you cannot pour from an empty cup. You must fill yourself first. You must first fill your cup. Guess what Jesus said? Seek first what? The kingdom of God. Because when you seek the kingdom of God, then who's going to fill your cup? God will. He promises to. He promises that his love and his grace will overflow your cup. Our culture says, hey, you got to fill your cup. You're responsible for filling your cup. Okay, I'll try and fill my cup. All right, and I'll go and I'll do, some alone time. Is alone time bad? No, alone time is good. And those of you who are extroverts and you have a hard time being alone, take it from me, this is something you should learn to do. Learn to be alone. Don't learn to be alone because you believe that you can fill your own cup. Because you think that all you need is just, let's do some deep breathing exercises. Are deep breathing exercises bad? No, your body needs air. And oxygen, they have proven, actually helps clear your thoughts and that's great. Do not deep breathe because you believe, there, now I am everything I need to be. This is where we exchange a truth for a lie. Do you see how tricky that I want to pause here because do you see how tricky this is? Do you see how easy it is to fall for something that's not overtly evil? This is not the devil saying, evil. This is just simple things that lead us to a place of going, this is up to me. I'm going to do this. I can be enough all on my own. If you want to soar in life, you must first learn to fly. F-L-Y. First love yourself. Now, here's what I've seen happen. Here's what I've experienced in my own life. Here's what I see in the lives of junior hires and high schoolers and college people and adults. When we try and be enough, when we try and love ourselves enough so we can fly, what we end up doing is swinging real high on a swing and calling it flying. We settle for it. We go, look, this is why? Because honestly, it's the best we've got. It's the best we can do. And so we're willing to settle for that because I tried everything. I try to be enough. I try to be a good enough friend. I try to be a good enough daughter. I try to be a tough enough guy. I try to be a good enough student. I've loved myself. I've tried to love myself enough. I've tried to positive think myself into flying. When really flying, you know what flying is? Ephesians 3:16-20. From his glorious unlimited resources, he will empower you with inner strength through his Spirit. Then Christ will make his home in your hearts as you trust in him. Your roots will grow down into God's love and keep you strong. And you may have the power to understand, as all God's people should, how wide, how long, and how high, and how deep his love is. You would experience the love of Christ, though it's too great to understand fully. Then you will be made complete with all the fullness of life and power that comes from God. Now all glory to God, who's able to do immeasurably more than anything you could ask for or imagine. That's flying. To have that kind of relationship with God, to have God empower your life in that way, that's flying. And I'm telling you, you will never be able to love yourself into that. Self-awareness does not equal healing. You have to do the work. Okay. True. Just being self-aware doesn't change anything. There are actions to be taken. Okay. You have to do the work. Kind of goes along with the first one of this, and sometimes it even sneaks into church. This is a pastor of a massive church who has lots and lots of these kinds of books. Says this: stop looking at your weakness and start declaring the power of I am. Now, okay, the power of I am, okay, he's on to something. Because when God called Moses to go free the children of Israel, Moses said, well, who should I say? What authority do I have to do this? And God said, tell them I am sent you. God, I am. So here, he's going, start declaring the power of I am. Yes. Say, I am strong. I am healthy. I am blessed. I am beautiful. I am prosperous. Because that's going to change you. When Paul wrote, but he said to me, I had to find it. He said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses so that the power of Christ will rest upon me. What are you going to depend on? I can be strong enough. I can be good enough. When Paul's going, man, it's when we acknowledge we are not enough. And it doesn't mean self-hatred. It doesn't mean you're supposed to put yourself, you are a creation and a child of God. So it's not saying you can just think terribly of yourself. You're not supposed to think terribly of yourself. But what's the context? That God says, hey, you're my child. And when you're weak, you will see strength. But we see picture after picture, meme after meme, message after message saying, hey, meet the person responsible for all these things. And you notice things are, okay, yeah, your choices, you are responsible for your choices. Grades, yeah, you gotta work. Your words, what words you use, yeah, you're gonna. But then throwing in the mix of all this is you're responsible for your happiness. You're responsible for your salvation. And we look at this and we're like, oh, what a great message. Wow, what a great look. And it's a mirror. It's me. I'm responsible. There is salvation in no one else. God has given no other name under heaven by which we're to be saved. Making ourselves an idol, and here's what we're going to go away with. Making ourselves idols adds massive pressure to your life. For you to have to be good enough, for you to have to fulfill all that society says, hey, you want to be happy? Make sure that you do all of these things. And it's no wonder that with all of these kinds of messages and with social media, and I know you see these things all the time on Instagram, and all, that in all of this, it's no wonder that with this mindset and all this pressure being put on you to say, it's about you. You can do this. You should try harder. You should think, you can just conjure this stuff up. Of course, anxiety in our culture is at an all-time high. Of course, depression is running rampant. Of course. It's no wonder that people look at things and decide, you know what, death is the only option. And there are certainly other factors in people who suffer from anxiety and depression and who make the heartbreaking decision to commit suicide. And there are physical factors, and so I'm not saying that every person who struggles with this is because they've bought into these lies. Please hear me say that. And I know that there are some of you here, you're like, well, I'm depressed. Is it just because I've believed it? No. My point in us looking at this is what culture is screaming at us. And when all the pressure is put on us to be enough, of course we're going to be anxious. Of course we're going to look at that and be like, I can never be that. Or why can't I? She seems happy. Why can't I be like her? Of course that is going to impact our lives. And the truth of it all is we were designed to cast our cares on God. You were designed. Are you with me? You were designed to not be the solution to all your problems. Be the one who can hold yourself up. You were not designed that way. You were designed to depend on God, to have a relationship with God. That's what you were designed to depend on. And anytime we trade that truth in for a lie, we are taking all this on ourselves and trying to do this all ourselves. And there are all kinds of passages in the Bible where we are called to humble ourselves. We are called to take our worries and our cares before God, because the reality of it is, the truth of it is, anxiety follows when we forget that God is supposed to take care of us. When we forget that it is God alone who is the giver of life and hope and joy, and we can never do it enough on our own. And anxiety will always follow when we go it alone and go, oh, well, I can't. Why can't I? What am I supposed to do now? And we are called to cast all our cares on him. And we are told this throughout Scripture. This is not a one-time thing. This is the message of God to our lives. Because through Christ alone, you can be who you were created to be, not who you feel you should be. And you guys, that is something in our culture. It always has been, but I know you see it all the time. It's like, oh, well, who do you feel you are? What do you, how you know, what's your identity? What do you most relate to? What do you think you should be? Guys walking around going like, oh, well, I should be tougher. I should be more manly. Women walking around going, oh, I should be prettier. I should be able to do this, and I should. Through Christ alone, we can be who we were designed to be. And self-care and positive thinking is not going to get us where our soul longs to be. Self-care, should you care for you? I mean, absolutely. Me going to the mountains, being away, taking some time and to get with God, absolutely, that is soul care. But just doing these things to get under your own power and to do what you can do, it's never going to get you to where your soul longs to be. So what is the source of the loudest voice in your life? What's screaming at you? I know that some of you really identified with some of those memes that I put up there, where you're like, yeah, I hear that. I believe that. I think that is true. I think that that's important. I think that I should do this in my life, and I think that I should depend on that. What truth are you holding on to? Are you exchanging a truth for a lie? Because in Philippians, Paul wrote to the Philippians, he said, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Not, I can do all things because I am the Son. And I realize that for a lot of you, this is tough. And it is tough because we are being bombarded in our culture every day, demanding that you're enough, screaming at you, you can do this on your own. Saying, hey, all you need is, and the reality of it is, very rarely do you see anything pointing you to Jesus. Pointing you to being filled, to reminding you that if you have put your faith in Jesus, you are filled with the Holy Spirit of God. And he is with you, and he wants to empower you. And he wants to do immeasurably more than you could ask for or imagine. And we're going to go to detour groups, and we're going to talk about this a little bit. And I want to ask you not to go nuts and be silly, and even the time in the detour groups, there are things that need to be shared. We don't laugh at each other. We don't make fun. We don't distract. We want this to be a safe place. And there's a whole lot that we talked about tonight that people need to talk about. They need prayer, and they want to, we need to be willing to walk with them in that.